Hi everyone, so my name is Molly Rammel, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our experience with PLM. So Ellery Homestyles is a wholesale home textiles supplier. We design, source, and produce soft goods for all major US-based retailers, plus their Mexico and Canadian counterparts. More specifically, we focus on soft goods in the areas of window curtains, bedding, throws, shower curtains, and decorative pillows. We employ over 200 people globally, and we're headquartered in New York City with warehouse and distribution centers in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and global offices for sourcing in China, India, and Pakistan. Our business is a mix of fashion and commodity, and we've always had an entrepreneurial spirit that kept us chasing new business at a fever pitch. Our problems came in 2008 when the economy took a nosedive. We were lucky enough that our portfolio of customers was diversified, and instead of seeing our volume drop, we saw our volume shift and a rise in sales with our discount customers. We were growing fast, which was a great problem to have. However, there is a reason I use the phrase great problem. I remember shortly after celebrating the win of a new customer's business, and my counterpart in production sighed and said, now the real work begins. The idea was we won the business, we worked so hard in design and sourcing, but now we've got to pull it off. And we've got to make it look flawless. We had poor visibility and control, and we knew we needed an impactful change in order to scale our business and take our company to the next level. So when we took a step back, our current status was we were wasting time. And wasting time is wasting money. We were scrappy and we were proud to win this business, but what we were doing was not going to continue to work. It worked until we hit the plateau, and then we knew the systems and processes that we had in place weren't going to allow us to climb any higher. We had 5 main issues going on. 1, we had time-consuming data entry. We had an Excel-based tech pack that were created and emailed back and forth between our New York-based teams and our overseas teams. The tech packs would be sent with the intention that all comments would reside within this Excel-based form and then sent back and communicated. Instead, what really happened was the New York team would send a tech pack, overseas would send it back, and forget to notate what they had changed. So the next day, New York was sitting there scratching their heads going, what happened? I've got to search through this whole Excel-based file to try to figure out what's going on. So we would lose days. It sounds so silly and so basic, but we would lose days trying to figure out what we had already done or what had been done that caused an issue. We'd miss sample timelines. We would spend days searching for ETAs that were in emails. We would miss deadlines and miss those opportunities that we valued so high to even get in the door to some of these customers. Then at the point of production, if we were lucky enough to win that business, it turned into a whole other circus of a mess. That tech pack then went to one single technical designer who then put it in a fancier version of Excel. But that person wasn't involved in the development whatsoever. So she was given a mess of emails and a mess of Excel tech packs and told to finalize a production spec. That led down the road to more issues where the factory didn't know what to produce. They produced the wrong things. We got chargebacks. We lost out on some of those opportunities and lost out on incremental opportunities beyond that. The second big issue we had was the miscommunications that was part of those tech packs, but also it was leaving people off of those email chains. Everything was in email, so if someone was on vacation, somebody didn't make a decision. If someone was sick or they forgot to add that person onto it, nobody did anything with the information. Everybody filled out those tech packs a little differently, leaving our overseas team with missing information, with inconsistent information, and it would take days, again, back and forth, to try to clarify what we were missing and what we needed to do. Being driven and hungry wasn't enough when we missed approval deadlines and weren't shipping to our customers. We would misfire on development and then ask ourselves what we did wrong. That and the fact of now looking for what we did wrong, half the time we couldn't find the answer because it was in so-and-so's email who was no longer with us, or it was in so-and-so's email but nobody even knew about it. As a result, we had longer cycle timelines. I remember working on projects for a specific retailer, one whose business we strived to capture. Twice a year, we would receive bids for their projects. And every time, we would miss these sample timelines, and we'd scratch our heads and say, why can't we make this happen? We would get so close, literally overnighting the samples from the factory directly to our salesperson who would hand deliver them the next day without even seeing them, only to get the return email from the customer that said, you were way off base. Why did you even focus on this effort? So, many late nights, many weekends spent trying to get these processes right. It took so much effort to get so little in return. As a result, our market timelines were longer. We started developing for market 3 weeks after the previous market. And what would happen is the samples would come in up to 2 days before market started, which means we were scrambling, a team of 6 of us at the time, scrambling to absolutely put an entire 3-tier showroom together, iron all the samples, style all the samples, pull together salesmen's books. If you want to talk about long nights and weekends, that was our life for a long period of time. We had a lack of reporting. It was a huge issue. Every sample ETA, like I said, if your boss came to you and said, what's the sample ETA for this huge project that we have for this retailer? You'd drop everything that you were doing, and 4 hours later you might have an answer for him. Or you might come back and say, well, it was the 3rd, but since today's the 13th, I've got to go back and send another email. It was a mess. Every cost was sent through email. So if somebody asked you to do a cost comparison, you had to sort through your email, find the most updated RFQ, and compare those two things together, only to find out they didn't include packaging. It was an absolute disaster, and it's amazing that we grew as much as we did. We didn't know how to keep our production timelines or keep track of our production timelines. Every log that we did was completely manual and just a snapshot. It wasn't live information. As soon as we created these market timelines, our market line plans, they were out of date. And on top of it, once we tried to add visuals with little pictures and costs, the file got too big and we couldn't even send it via email. We spent time working around poor visibility. We created those logs, and those logs immediately went out to date. And if it sounds like a complete nightmare and you're wondering how this success story really turns around, I was too. I was wondering how we were going to grow this business. So we began looking for PLM partners. We found one immediately and implemented quickly. 2 years later, we sat in the exact same spot as before. We didn't do our due diligence. We chose the wrong partner. We didn't ask the right questions of our users. We didn't take a step back and confirm if what we really do is what we think we do. So my boss will come in and say to me, Molly, we're falling short on this process. Things are falling through the cracks. Can you go talk to the users and figure out what's going on? She'll say, Jenny is supposed to do this. She's supposed to gather the information, and she's supposed to send it to Sarah. Sarah is then supposed to add another piece of information and then send it to Jane. And Jane is supposed to compare all of that and then send it to sales. Now, if you go out and you ask that first user, what are they doing? They'll say, I don't do that. Who made up that process? I've never even heard of that. You go to the second user and they'll say, yeah, that's the process. I just get the information from a different person and I go about it in a different way. And then if you ask the third person, they'll say, that's exactly what happens. I always get it from Jenny and I always get it from Sarah, and I don't confirm it though, I just send it directly to the buyer. And you're left with, there's the problem, but it wasn't what we laid out for that partner was not what was really happening in our business. And that was one of the biggest missteps. We still had data entry. We still had no reporting. And we never spoke to the users to see if what they thought they were doing was what we were actually doing, which was key. Therefore, we were off on our vendor pick and suffered a tough implementation and a loss of morale amongst our teams. It was one of the most difficult times I've ever seen at the company that I'm currently at. So 2 years later, the importance of that reporting and the reduction of that data entry and the need for it was still there. So we started looking again for vendors for PLM. We sat down and we made a list of our needs this time. We spoke to the users and we took upon a global evaluation, not just looking at the main users, but who this would touch amongst all of our teams. And we needed to replace this PLM that wasn't working. And what wasn't working was it wasn't easy for the users to use. They had to skip amongst screens and fill in some information, but not others. We wanted them to choose specific words to fill in boxes, but there weren't tables behind it to force some of those entries. There weren't controls in a system where that's what systems are for. So we needed a system and came up with a short list of a system. We wanted a system that would do the work for us, not a system that we had to work for. We wanted an easy interface for the users, for quick onboarding of new staff, and quick implementation. We needed a system that gave us reporting for analysis so that we could make educated business decisions about our development. And we needed a system that was flexible enough to scale. We had seen a significant amount of growth, and we knew that we were aiming for another round of growth. Our executive team vetted multiple companies to find those that fit our business solution and our needs. And we selected the top 3 to meet with a committee of super users. These were 5 users amongst the team that were in our current PLM system every day, that knew the challenges, that knew the ins and outs, that felt really passionate about trying to make their day and their employees' days and staff around them better. So the super users then met with each of those top 3 companies and grilled them about how they would use this system on a daily basis. They asked those hard questions and they said, okay, this is how I do it today. How would I do it tomorrow with your system? It was so important, and we let the users get that buy-in, and we let the users really determine what system we moved forward with. We also found a dedicated project manager on our internal team, solely focused on making this project a success. Almost any software vendor comes with their own project manager, and we had that previously, but we didn't have somebody on our side, somebody that was internal to that super user team that could speak for the employees so we didn't have to have every single one of them in a meeting all the time, somebody that could help design the processes around the system and make sure that we did this the right way. We found a great product and we found a great partner, and we implemented with all of the business capabilities that we required. Now we were on the right track to phase 1 of unlocking our business growth. We implemented in 6 months, and we immediately started seeing results. Our in-house team visibility, we had 2 teams globally, 1 domestic, and then our overseas teams working on 1 system. So finally, we weren't spending time taking comments out of emails and updating tech packs. It was happening in real time every single day with no effort from our users. We had to customize views so they didn't have to see what they didn't need to see, what they didn't need to reference or they didn't need to enter. They don't need to see that. They can focus on their jobs and what they need to get done, and that was hugely helpful in impacting the user's daily operations. Their screens and reports were exception-based, so they only focused on what was active and what they needed to focus on. So we took their days, and instead of having to sort through large amounts of data, we really streamlined that and took the search out of it so they could focus on the core of what was needed for that specific day. It was an eye-opener to take away these cumbersome logs for the team that couldn't ever be maintained and give them tools to do their job faster and more efficiently. We also got immediate results in the aspect of a deeper collaboration with our supply chain. A closer connection to our overseas team meant that those teams suddenly built confidence in one another. They felt as though they could trust and rely upon the information that was coming back and forth because both teams were able to focus on the needs instead of all of the outlying data that they didn't really need to focus on. Our teams were in sync and able to move faster because of it. We automated communication. Comments and questions today are directly entered onto the tech pack, and instead of the team receiving 75 separate emails with comments and questions, the system combines all of that into one distribution list, into one email, and sends all of those comments automatically to every team member. So if someone's on a vacation day or a sick day or traveling for business, the rest of the team can pick up those questions and get answers to them. We don't lose those days in our timeline that we used to. We've received immediate benefits in the area of our vendors. Our vendors are now happier. They're able to work with us easier. They now have the information that they need to do the job that we're asking of them. They wanted better and more complete information in the tech packs, and now they're getting it. They know our expectations in a clearer sense, and they began believing that Ellery was a company that they wanted to partner with, which is huge when you're trying to negotiate costs. We immediately started to see reporting and analytical benefits. We automated tracking reports for sample and raw material requests. Every day, an hour before each office starts their workday, an automated report is sent to each of those teams listing all of their outstanding lab dip, hand loom, sample requests. They don't have to keep track of any of that. As soon as the samples are received, they check them into the system and they drop off the report. As soon as the samples are sent by the overseas team, they enter in an actual ship date in comparison to the ETA so we can measure against it, and they enter in the tracking information. So long gone are the days where we know it's here, but it got lost in the New York office. Where are those very, very important lab dips? Those days are behind us. Overseas now knows what's coming and what's due, and the New York office knows what's coming and due to them as well. For 2 years, these reports have been automated with zero effort beyond the initial setup from the PLM administrator. We also saw immediate benefits in that we were able to go quicker to market. As a result of everything we mentioned, our sample timelines were reduced significantly. We went from 2.5 months to 2.5 weeks. And guess who won that business? That retailer that we were constantly chasing, that we could never hit their sample timelines, is now one of our biggest customers. Strangely, one of the main challenges beyond these immediate benefits, one of the biggest challenges was convincing our team to stop doing the manual work. It was something that they were used to. It was something that they had been doing for years on end. And it was something that at one point or another, I had to sit down with the entire team and say, stop doing your manual tracking logs. The system is doing them for you. Here, they're in your email every single day. Are you sure that's everything? I don't know. Maybe I should check. I told them pretty much we had to sit down and have a discussion about what we were going to do with all of our free time. And somebody sarcastically shouted, we're going to all have to find hobbies, maybe knitting. So phase one was getting rid of a lot of those daily annoyances and allowed our teams to become more than just data entry associates. But the more impactful phase two was right behind those immediate benefits. Yes, we saw results where our team members spent less time on the menial tasks, but reducing those tasks meant time focusing on the bigger picture. It freed us up to think differently. It gave us a way to say what if and then follow up with those what ifs in a big way that we had never done before. Brainstorming sessions of the past usually involved a little brainstorming and a lot of worrying about how you were going to go back to your desk and deal with all of your emails. Now we have focused brainstorming sessions that come in with great cost-saving initiatives for our company. In that phase two, we really started deep diving into those strategic initiatives. One of the big ones was vendor audits. We could never do vendor audits before. We worked and made decisions about who to award business to based on our emotions and on our gut feelings. Now we had data that we never had before. We could quickly implement because of that information. We finally answered our vendors confidently when they asked us why they didn't get a program or how they could grow their business with us. And we told them how to do better, and we provided them with those data and that data and statistics that we used to make those decisions. We took that data one step further and started scorecarding our vendors. Just as our customers do to us, we started to do that with our vendors. and we started showing them where the areas of improvement were and where they were doing great, and we gave them praise and we gave them constructive criticism. And based on those scorecards, we created our first annual vendor summit, where we get all of our vendors in a room and we create a presentation about our policies and our procedures, about our expectations, about what it takes to be a good vendor for us, about how they can grow their business. The vendors now see us as a more important customer because we're being strategic. We're thinking about them as much as we want us to think about, as much as we want them to think about us. We started discussing with them, based on that vendor summit, cost-saving initiatives. How can we both benefit from this? We're partners. This is a relationship and a business that we all want to grow. In phase 2, we also used that new free time to focus on potential white spaces within each of our customers' planograms. We brought them opportunities and initiatives that would change their business. We showed them that we were thinking about their needs and therefore won more opportunities because we were thinking forward, more forward than any of our competitors could ever go, because now we had the time. We also leveraged that reporting. It was a big piece of phase 2 benefits. We started pulling information and looking at which brands we were developing for and categorized those into our 3 main buckets of licensed brands, proprietary brands, and private label brands. Were we developing enough product for the areas in which we were saying we were going to grow the business? Did our line plans match up with what we were saying we were going to do at the end of the day? We took a look at user data to see who was creating the most tech packs. And what we saw was we had senior designers, high-paid senior designers that were creating tech packs. And at this point, everybody kind of said, all right, they're designers, it's a job, everybody does it, which was great, until you start to put those data to numbers. And you start to say, this is how much each of these tech packs is costing you. The cost of a tech pack that an assistant designer does versus a senior designer is significantly different. That changed a bit of our staffing. We realigned things because we wanted to free those senior designers up to do creative tasks, not to do the system entry that we needed, not to create commodity specs that are day in, day out types of needs that we have. We were getting our development done in less time and cranking it out at a higher rate, which meant we were capitalizing on all of those opportunities and servicing our customers at a higher level. So our measurable results. We've saved over 1,000 plus product development hours, and our productivity is up 30%. The time and the effort that it took us to create a tech pack or bring something to a sales sample or to fruition in that aspect has decreased significantly. We've got over 100% improvement in efficiency, with the return on effort just going through the roof. We've had multi-million-dollar revenue growth, and we've got real-time visibility into everything. We can see the samples that are coming. We can see the approvals that are going to need comments. We can plan our days and our weeks better, and to the team, that is hugely beneficial. We also have confidence in our future. We talked to the standard of making a 24-hour day. There's only 24 hours in a day. There's only so much I can do. But we were talking as a team about making that day more meaningful. What would you do if your boss came to you and said, that hour that you do every day, I'm going to wipe it clean, somebody else is going to do it? What would you do with that free time? How would it change your day if somebody took away the manual task that you just have to do because it's your job and said, here's an hour, do something better with it? That's what we did with our team. We gave them a 25th hour of the day. And for our team, it's not just the financial benefits that you get for it, the faster lead times, the opportunities. It's a lot about every employee wanting to contribute and feel like they have a meaningful position in the company. They don't want to be a cog in the wheel. And what we did was we boosted morale in a huge way by giving every team member something that they could contribute to. And we elevated our employees and let the system do the dirty work for us. So what's next on the horizon? Phase 3. We're working on implementing data points that will give our warehouse and distribution center space planning abilities and put away information that will allow us to replenish and put away faster and pick at a higher rate. We're investigating purchasing raw materials directly from the suppliers, which has an immense depth of cost savings if managed correctly. We're talking about how to leverage new bridge platforms that our PLM supplier is coming out with that can help us sell in a different and new and more interactive way with our customers. And we're able to think of that next level because we have a partner that listens, that is extremely passionate about this business, and that gives us the confidence that we have the capability to grow this business again and again and again. That's it. Honestly, I mentioned that in the presentation because it was one of the more challenging pieces. You put in all of these great tools, but unless you have somebody that's really dedicated, a PLM administrator, to kind of take it consistently to a next level and make sure you're monitoring some of those things, that people aren't going outside the system, that they are keeping the communication where it needs to go, they are checking in the samples, making sure that the system can do that work for you. I think it would be very challenging to make sure that you got your return on your investment for years after your implementation. And everybody was, like I said, working nights and weekends to really push this company to the next level. Then we were told we were going to get a system. We got that system, and the users were so disappointed in it because it wasn't what we needed. So when the second PLM company came along, we did it the right way, people were so willing to change. They were so excited to make this move. So there was a little bit of that resistance and kind of feeling that safe comfort in doing what they've always done. Change scares people, but having that person and an all around kind of the support of, this is better. We really talked ourselves through it as a team, was key in kind of getting things done and using the system in the right way. No, we did the exact opposite. My position was backloaded as the project manager for the implementation, but it was backloaded with my assistant at the time, and we hired her full-time intern. So that one person. We didn't hire any additional overhead until about a year and a half after implementation. And what we hired at that point was technical designers that actually reside in Pakistan. So we were able to keep them, because the communication was so strong, we were able to keep them at a cost, a significant benefit to our cost by moving them overseas. And at that point, what happened was we gained significant customer. We gained so much volume that we had to increase overhead. It wasn't the system that was causing that additional work, it was the business that we were getting because of the system. That transition was a difficult one. It wasn't one that was won in the first, I would say, 6 months. It was something that I kept coming to, the VP of design and our CEO, and I said, listen, these people shouldn't be creating these tech packs. They need to be creative. They want to be creative. That's what you pay them for. It's really important that they have time to go trend shopping. It's really important they have time to manage the lower level employees that are underneath them. And they were kind of screaming for the same. I was just the liaison in that aspect. Until I put the numbers to it, then that's when they started to see, okay, we're paying a lot. So what happened was, again, we kind of leveraged the interns. We've got a great program there. We started to say, okay, this is what's been taken off of your plate. Now we're going to add these things to it, and we're going to elevate that person's tasks. So we sat with that for, again, about a year and a half, and it wasn't until we really started to grow our volume that we said, all right, now we've got to add those technical designers in Pakistan to offset some of this additional development that we're doing. But that's the way we went at it. We went with BlueCherry from CGS. The users in themselves, when we sat down, and I was part of that super user committee, so I remember this very clearly. They did not have home textiles experience, which was something everybody looks for. But in the home fashions industry, products are dedicated to apparel. They're not dedicated to my industry. So we sat down with 2 other vendors that did have home textile experience, and they just weren't going to take us to the next level. All of the R&D is in this area, and these guys were willing to throw all of that R&D into this specific product, and it was fitting every single one of our needs. Beyond that, there's always something customized that you want to do, and they were willing to say, okay, these 3 things, we'll work with you on them. And they're passionate about what they do. They listen to what you're saying. They work through those examples for you. They have insanely good project managers. And to this day, they're fantastic partners.